Annihilation of Caste by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Part 24. I think these remarks apply equally to the Brahmins of India, and one can say with equal truth that if a man who becomes a pope has no wish to become a revolutionary, a man who is born a Brahmin has much less desire to become a revolutionary. Indeed, to expect a Brahmin to be a revolutionary in matters of social reform is as idle as to expect the British Parliament, as was said by Leslie Stephen, to pass an act requiring all blue eyed babies to be murdered. Some of you will say that it is a matter of small concern whether the Brahmins come forward to lead the movement against caste or whether they do not. To take this view is, in my judgment, to ignore the part played by the intellectual class in the community. Whether you accept the theory of the great man as the maker of history or whether you do not, this much you will have to concede, that in every country the intellectual class is the most influential class, if not the governing class. The intellectual class is the class which can foresee, it is the class which can advise and give the lead. In no country does the mass of people live the life of intelligent thought and action. It is largely imitative and follows the intellectual class. There is no exaggeration in saying that the entire destiny of a country depends upon its intellectual class. If the intellectual class is honest, independent, and disinterested, it can be trusted to take the initiative and give a proper lead when a crisis arises. It is true that intellect by itself is no virtue. It is only a means, and the use of means depends upon the ends which an intellectual person pursues. An intellectual man can be a good man, but he can easily be a rogue. Similarly, an intellectual class may be a band of high souled persons, ready to help, ready to emancipate erring humanity. Or it may easily be a gang of crooks or a body of advocates for a narrow clique from which it draws its support. You may think it a pity that the intellectual class in India is simply another name for the Brahmin caste. You may regret that the two are one, that the existence of the intellectual class should be bound up with one single caste, that this intellectual class should share the interest and the aspirations of that Brahmin caste, which has regarded itself as the custodian of the interest of that caste rather than of the interests of the country. All this may be very regrettable, but the fact remains that the Brahmins form the intellectual class of the Hindus. It is not only an intellectual class, but it is a class which is held in great reverence by the rest of the Hindus. The Hindus are taught that the Brahmins are Bhudevas, gods on earth. Varnanam Brahmano Guru. The Hindus are taught that Brahmins alone can be their teachers. Manu says, if it be asked how it should be with respect to points of the Dharma which have not been specifically mentioned, the answer is that which Brahmins who are Shishtas propound shall doubtless have legal force. Anamrateshu dharmeshu kadam syadidi ched bhaved. Yam shishta brahmana bruyu sadharma syadadishankita. When such an intellectual class, which holds the rest of the community in its grip, is opposed to the reform of caste, the chances of success in a movement for the breakup of the caste system appear to me very, very remote. The second reason why I say the task is impossible will be clear if you will bear in mind that the caste system has two aspects. In one of its aspects, it divides men into separate communities. In its second aspect, it places these communities in a graded order above the other in social status. Each caste takes its pride and its consolation in the fact that, in the scale of caste, it is above some other caste. As an outward mark of this gradation, there is also a gradation of social and religious rights, technically spoken of as ashtadhikaras and sanskaras. The higher the grade of a caste, the greater the number of these rights, and the lower the grade, the lesser their number.